I didn't plan on finding out. Honestly, if I had, I would have walked away from the whole situation months ago. But life doesn't always play by the rules, does it? Sometimes, it forces you into moments you never saw coming, moments that change everything. And sometimes, those moments come in the quietest, most ordinary ways. It was an unusually warm Friday night, the kind of evening that drags its feet before finally giving in to the weekend. The city outside my apartment was alive with noise, lights flickering through my window. Inside, though, it was still. Too still. It had been like that for the past couple of months, but I hadn't allowed myself to admit it. I had always considered myself a patient man, someone who could wait things out. I thought I could ignore the signs, push them to the back of my mind. But as the minutes turned into hours that night, I realized how wrong I had been. It wasn't until that very moment that I understood how deeply the silence had grown, how deeply it had already taken root in my life, my marriage. It started simply enough. I was sitting in the living room, scrolling through old pictures on my phone. It was mindless, just a way to pass the time, really. My wife, Amara, was in the other room. I could hear the sound of her moving around, maybe tidying up. Nothing unusual. But then I heard it. A faint click, followed by the soft murmur of voices. At first, I assumed it was the TV. Maybe I had left it on too loud, or maybe it was some random noise from the street outside. But no, this was different. This was too close, too deliberate. The voices came again. And this time, they were clearer. They weren't on the TV, and they certainly weren't coming from outside. They were from the other room. Our bedroom. I froze. It wasn't that I had never felt suspicious before. The little things, the odd moments where I felt like something wasn't right. But I had always convinced myself I was being paranoid. I had trusted Amara completely. We'd been together for years, shared everything. She was my anchor, my partner, my everything. So, why did it feel like I was standing on the edge of something I couldn't pull myself back from? I told myself it was nothing. Maybe she was talking to a friend. Maybe she was on a call with one of her sisters. But deep down, I knew I had to know what was going on. I had to hear it for myself. Without thinking, I stood up. The floorboards creaked beneath my feet, and I winced at the sound. But it was too late. She had already heard me. "Hello." Amara's voice rang out from the bedroom. I didn't respond. I didn't know what to say. A moment of silence passed, and then I heard it again. The soft click, followed by a deep voice, too familiar, too comforting. A voice that didn't belong. "Yeah, I can't wait for tonight either," the voice said. "It's been too long. Too long." My stomach twisted. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't process what I was hearing. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. There was no turning back now. I had to know. I walked toward the bedroom door, trying to make as little noise as possible. But I wasn't sure why. There was no reason to sneak. I wasn't in the wrong. She was. I stood outside for a moment, gathering my thoughts, trying to piece together what had been happening in the last few months. The sudden distance, the late nights at work, the quiet phone calls she always took in another room, the way she'd smile when she thought I wasn't looking. I tried to tell myself I was imagining things, that I had it all wrong. But deep down, I knew better. I pushed the door open just enough to peek inside. And that's when I saw it. Amara was sitting on the bed, her back to me, her phone pressed against her ear. But it wasn't just her voice that hit me. It was the way she was talking, the soft laughter, the way she leaned back, the way she was at ease in a way I hadn't seen in months. "You're sure?" "Because I don't want to risk it," Amara said, her voice low and seductive. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I just stood there, frozen, watching her. She didn't even realize I was there, standing just feet away, my world crumbling before my eyes. But then, the words that followed shattered everything. "Damien will never know," she said, her tone light. "He's too oblivious to figure it out. And honestly, I'm enjoying myself too much to care." It felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. Every inch of my being screamed to confront her, to demand the truth. But my body wouldn't obey. I stayed there, motionless, my mind a whirlwind of rage, disbelief, and a pain that I didn't know how to process. I didn't say anything at first. I couldn't. My mouth felt dry, my heart pounding in my chest. And then, after what felt like an eternity, she hung up. She turned around, as if nothing had happened, and noticed me standing in the doorway. Her face went pale, and for the briefest moment, I saw real fear in her eyes, the kind of fear that only comes when someone realizes they've been caught. I didn't say anything at first. I didn't need to. The silence between us was deafening, the truth lingering in the air like a heavy weight neither of us could avoid. And then, in the silence, I finally spoke, my voice steady but laced with the bitterness I had kept hidden for so long. I heard everything, Amara. For a moment, there was nothing but the sound of our breathing. Hers quick and shallow, mine slow but heavy with the weight of what I had just heard. I could feel my pulse pounding in my throat, the blood rushing to my head. The air between us felt thick, suffocating, like the very walls of the room were closing in. Amara stood there, her back still to me, her hands trembling slightly as she fiddled with the hem of her shirt. She didn't turn to face me right away. Instead, she slowly stood up, her movements deliberate, as though trying to gather her thoughts. Her silence spoke volumes, louder than any words could. I could feel my anger rising, but I was trying to stay in control. I had to know the truth. I couldn't let myself get lost in the chaos of the moment. But how could I keep calm when everything I thought I knew about her, about us, was suddenly shattered? Damien, she finally said, her voice soft, almost apologetic, but I could tell it was forced. I didn't mean for you to find out like this. The words stung. I wanted to yell, to scream, but I didn't. I didn't want her to see how much it was hurting me, how much I was breaking on the inside. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing me fall apart. She'd already done that. I don't care how you meant it, I said, my voice quiet, almost too calm. What I care about is that you've been lying to me. For who knows how long. She took a step toward me, but I held up a hand, stopping her in her tracks. Don't, I said. Don't try to justify this. I'm not interested in your excuses. Her face twisted in confusion, but I could see the guilt creeping in. She had been caught, and no matter how hard she tried to hide it, there was no pretending otherwise. I never meant for it to go this far, she said, her voice wavering. It just happened. I didn't want to hurt you. My stomach turned at her words. It just happened? How could she possibly say that? She wasn't some helpless bystander in this. She made choices. She chose to betray me. So what now? I asked, my voice rising despite myself. You're just going to tell me it's not what I think? That you didn't mean it? That you were just bored? Because that's what it sounds like to me. She flinched at my words, but I wasn't about to let up. She had made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. I'm sorry, she said, her eyes welling up with tears, but I wasn't sure if I cared anymore. I never wanted to hurt you. You have to understand. I didn't know how to fix what was broken between us. Broken? My mind raced as I processed her words. What was she talking about? Our marriage wasn't perfect, sure, but I never once thought it was broken. I was there, wasn't I? I had been trying so hard to keep everything together, to keep us together. I had always been the one who cared. I had always been the one who made sure we didn't drift apart. And now, I was realizing that she had already drifted long before I even noticed. You're right, I said, my voice bitter now. You didn't want to hurt me, but you did. You have been hurting me, and I had no idea. I looked at her, and for a moment, I almost didn't recognize her. The woman I had shared my life with, the woman I thought I knew. It was like she had become a stranger overnight. She wasn't the person I thought I had married. Who is he? I asked, my voice quieter now, but still laced with the anger that was threatening to boil over. The guy you've been seeing. Who is he? Her face went pale, and for a brief second, I saw a real fear flash across her eyes. She hesitated, like she wasn't sure whether to tell me the truth or continue to lie. It's not like that, she started, but I cut her off. Don't lie to me anymore, Amara. I heard everything. I heard you plan your night with him. How you were excited for it. I heard you tell him that I wouldn't find out. Don't sit there and tell me it's not like that. I could see her struggling with the words. She opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came out. I wasn't sure what I was expecting. Maybe an apology, maybe some kind of explanation, but nothing she said could ever undo the damage. I wasn't happy, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I felt alone. And I made a mistake. I felt a strange, hollow feeling inside me as I stared at her. It wasn't anger anymore, not really. It was a dull ache, the kind you get when you realize something that once felt solid is crumbling beneath you. So, you just decided to cheat? To throw everything away? I asked, my words sharp as daggers. Did you even think about me? About us? What the hell was I supposed to do with that? I couldn't help it. The floodgates opened, and I was no longer in control. The frustration, the betrayal, the pain, all of it hit me like a tidal wave. I had given everything to her, to this marriage, and in return, she had given me nothing but lies. I didn't know what to do, she said, her voice desperate now. I didn't want to leave you. I didn't know how to fix things. And then I met him, and it just happened. It was a mistake. A huge mistake, and I'm so sorry. Her apology sounded empty to me, like she was sorry only because she had been caught, not because she truly regretted what she had done. It was too late for apologies. It was too late for anything. I turned away from her then, unable to look at her anymore. I needed space. I needed to think, to process everything that had just unfolded in front of me. My mind was a whirlwind, the weight of the situation sinking in. Nothing was the same anymore. She wasn't the same person I had married. And I wasn't sure who I was anymore, either. I needed to walk away. I needed to get some air, some space to breathe, but I didn't. Instead, I stood there in that silence. The kind of silence that fills your ears with 1,000 unanswered questions. The kind of silence that stretches on, suffocating you with everything left unsaid. I couldn't leave. Not yet. The truth was too sharp, too raw, and my mind kept replaying her words like an endless loop. I didn't know how long we stood there like that, but every second felt like an eternity. Amara's gaze never left me. I could feel her eyes on the back of my neck, boring into me, waiting for me to say something, anything. But what was there to say? How could she apologize for something like this? How could she make it right? I wasn't angry anymore. I couldn't even remember why I had been so mad. Now all I felt was empty. I didn't care about the details of what had happened or how long it had been going on. I didn't care if it had been one night or 100 nights. What mattered now was that the person I had trusted with everything, with my heart, my soul, my entire future, had torn that trust to pieces without a second thought. Finally, I turned to face her. She hadn't moved. She still stood there, her hands clasped tightly in front of her, her eyes wide and vulnerable. But it wasn't the vulnerability I wanted to see. I didn't want to see her regret. I didn't want to hear her tearfully explain how things had gotten out of hand. I just wanted it all to stop. I don't know what you want me to say, Amara, I said, my voice low, almost detached. You've already said everything. You've made your choice. Her eyes welled up again, and she took a tentative step toward me, but I held up my hand to stop her. No, I said, don't come closer. Don't say anything more. I can't do this anymore. Her face crumbled at the words, and a sob escaped her lips. I could feel the tension in my chest tighten with every painful sound she made. But I didn't know how to comfort her. I didn't know how to look at her the same way. It was as if I had been living in a lie all this time, and now that lie had shattered, leaving me with nothing but the cold reality of what she had done. I never wanted to hurt you, she whispered, her voice breaking. I love you, Damien. I never meant for this to happen. The words felt hollow. How could she love me when she had done something like this? How could she look at me and say those words with a straight face, knowing she had betrayed me in the worst possible way? I can't do this, I repeated, my voice steady now, even though everything inside me was shaking. I can't live like this. I can't trust you anymore. I don't know if I ever will. Her breath hitched, and for a moment, I almost thought she was going to collapse. I almost thought she would beg for forgiveness, that she would fall to her knees and apologize 1,000 times, but she didn't. Instead, she just stood there, staring at me, like she was waiting for me to make the next move. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I didn't know what came after something like this. We had been through hard times before, sure, but this was different. This was betrayal, plain and simple. I couldn't erase what I had heard. I couldn't unsee what she had done. But as much as I wanted to walk away, as much as I wanted to end it right there, I couldn't. Not yet. Because even though I had been hurt, more than I could ever put into words, a part of me still wanted to know more. I still wanted to understand how we had gotten here, how this had all happened. I couldn't leave without knowing why. I needed the full truth. Not just the surface-level apology she was trying to give me, but the real story. Who is he? I asked, my voice more forceful this time, cutting through the tension in the room. Who's the guy, Amara? I need to know. She flinched at the question, her hands trembling even more now, but she didn't immediately answer. She looked away from me, like she was trying to find the right words, or maybe trying to avoid saying them at all. But I wasn't going to let her off the hook. I need a name, I said, my patience wearing thin. I deserve to know. She swallowed hard. and for a moment, I thought she might not answer at all. But finally, she spoke. It's Max, she said quietly, her eyes now fixed on the floor. Max Granger. Max. The name landed in the room like a punch to the gut. I hadn't heard of him before, not in the context of my marriage, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I should have known. Maybe I had seen him before, maybe at some party or at a friend's gathering. But his name didn't matter. What mattered was that he had been the one to fill the void I had apparently left behind. Max Granger. I repeated, almost to myself. I didn't know him, but somehow, I hated him already. How long? Damien, please, she whispered, but I cut her off. No, I said, my voice firm now, like I was finally taking control of this situation. How long, Amara? She hesitated, and the silence in the room was unbearable. It felt like the walls were closing in on me again. It started about 6 months ago, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. We met through work, and it was just one thing led to another. I didn't mean for it to happen. I never wanted to hurt you, but I did. 6 months. The words hit me like a tidal wave. She had been sneaking around with him for half a year, lying to my face every single day. I felt a wave of nausea roll over me, and I had to step back, away from her, away from the truth. I can't believe this, I said, my voice shaking now. I trusted you. I trusted you with everything. I know, she said, her voice full of regret. And I betrayed that trust. I'm sorry, Damien. I'm so sorry. Sorry. Sorry didn't even begin to cover it. Sorry didn't fix what she had broken. Sorry didn't bring back the trust, the love, the life we had built together. And yet, she kept saying it, over and over again, as if those words could fix everything. But nothing would ever be the same again. I didn't know what to do with myself. Everything that had once been solid, that had once made sense, was now slipping through my fingers like sand. It wasn't just the betrayal. It wasn't just the fact that she had been seeing someone else. No, it was everything. The lies, the secretive behavior, the nights she came home late smelling like someone else's cologne, the way she looked at me sometimes like I was the one who had been keeping her in the dark. I had trusted her completely, and now that trust felt like a sick joke. A cruel trick played on me by the very person I thought I knew better than anyone. I needed answers, but the more I heard, the less sense it made. 6 months. That's how long she had been seeing him. And all this time, I had been right there, next to her, oblivious. It felt like I had been living in a dream, and now I was awake. But everything was broken, shattered beyond recognition. I never meant for it to go this far, Amara said, her voice trembling. She was still standing by the bed, her body rigid, her eyes pleading with me for some kind of mercy, some kind of understanding that I wasn't sure I was capable of giving. I was just lonely, Damien. Things, they weren't the same between us anymore. You started pulling away, and I didn't know how to fix it. And then I met him, and it just happened. Lonely? Was she serious? I thought back to all the times I had been there for her, all the times I had tried to make her feel loved, wanted, cared for. But somehow, none of that was enough. She had turned to someone else to fill the void, and now she was trying to tell me it was my fault. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the anger that was bubbling inside me. I couldn't let her see how much it hurt. I couldn't let her see how much I was breaking. But it was impossible to ignore the truth. Lonely, I repeated, my voice dangerously low. You felt lonely, Amara? I've been here, for you. And you still went and did this. How does that even make sense? She didn't answer. She couldn't, not really. What could she say? That she was sorry? That she didn't know what had happened? She had already said it all, but none of it made it better. None of it made what she had done disappear. I turned away from her, walking to the window. I needed the space. I needed the air. I couldn't look at her anymore. Not like this. You should have just told me, Amara. I said quietly, my voice cracking slightly. You should have told me you weren't happy. That things weren't working. I would have listened. We could have worked through it. But instead, you just kept it all inside, and you turned to someone else. Damien, I'm so sorry, she said again, her voice barely above a whisper. I never wanted to hurt you. I never thought it would go this far. I couldn't stop it. I felt like I was drowning, and then Max was there, and it just happened. I didn't plan it. I didn't want to hurt you, I swear. I laughed bitterly, the sound almost foreign coming from my own lips. You didn't want to hurt me? I echoed, turning back to face her. Then why did you do it? If you didn't want to hurt me, Why did you betray me like this? Her face twisted in pain, and I could see the guilt eating away at her. But it wasn't enough. Her remorse wasn't enough to undo what had been done. I thought I was protecting you, she said, her voice cracking. I didn't want to make you feel like you weren't enough. I didn't want to make you feel like I was falling out of love with you. But I was. I was scared, Damien. I didn't know how to fix it. I thought if I just kept it quiet, we could still have our life together. I shook my head in disbelief. She thought she was protecting me? What kind of twisted logic was that? The truth, no matter how ugly, always came to the surface. There was no protecting anyone by hiding the truth, especially not from the person you were supposed to trust the most. You don't protect someone by lying to them, I said, the words coming out harsher than I intended. You don't protect someone by having an affair behind their back. I know that now, she whispered, her eyes full of regret. But it's too late, isn't it? I didn't answer her. What could I say? Was it too late? Was there even a chance for us to come back from this? Could I ever look at her the same way? Could I trust her again? The silence between us stretched on for what felt like hours. I didn't know what I was waiting for. I didn't know what I expected her to say. But what I did know, deep down, was that something inside me had shifted. A part of me had already walked away, even though my body was still standing there, frozen in time. Finally, I turned toward her, my eyes colder than they had ever been. You need to leave, I said, my voice firm. Her eyes widened, and for the first time since this all began, she looked truly scared. What? She asked, her voice trembling. Damien, please. No, I said, cutting her off. I can't do this anymore. I can't look at you, not like this. I need space. I need you to go. She didn't argue. She didn't say anything more. Instead, she just stood there, her face pale, her body trembling, and she quietly turned toward the door. Before she left, though, she paused, as if she wanted to say something, but no words came. She just looked at me, one last look, before she walked out of the room. I didn't watch her go. I couldn't. Instead, I stood there, frozen in place, staring at the spot where she had been standing just moments before. The truth had been laid bare, and the weight of it was suffocating. I had loved her. I had trusted her. And now, I had nothing. I didn't know where to go from here. But one thing was certain. The person I had been before this moment, the person who had believed in love and trust and honesty, was gone. And what remained was someone who was broken, someone who could never be whole again. It was one of those nights where the air feels heavier than usual, thick with the weight of things left unsaid, of words still trapped in your throat. I couldn't sleep. I didn't know what I was supposed to do with myself now that she was gone. I had told her to leave, but part of me still wanted her to stay. Part of me wanted her to beg for forgiveness, to explain herself one more time, to tell me it wasn't as bad as it seemed, that maybe I was just overreacting, that maybe I still had a chance to trust her again. But I knew that was never going to happen, because the truth had already been spoken, and nothing could undo it. The silence in the apartment felt deafening. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator, the faint ticking of the clock on the wall. But that was it. The life that had once filled this place, the laughter, the conversations, the late-night talks, was gone. There was no going back. I walked into the living room and sank down onto the couch, my mind racing. I tried to focus on anything else, the TV, the phone, anything to distract me from the reality of the situation. But nothing helped. I kept seeing her face, her eyes full of guilt and regret, but it wasn't enough. I kept hearing her words over and over in my mind. The way she had said she was lonely, the way she had turned to someone else instead of talking to me. Max. The name felt like a poison, lingering in the air. I didn't know anything about him, but in my mind, he was already everything I hated. He had taken what was mine, the part of Amara that should have belonged to me, the part of her I had never questioned. And now, that trust was gone. The door opened a few hours later, and I didn't have to look up to know it was her. I heard the soft click of the door, the familiar sound of her footsteps. But this time, it didn't bring any comfort. This time, it only brought dread. I didn't say anything. I didn't even look up. I could feel her presence in the room, like she was waiting for me to react, to do something. But I didn't have anything left to give. She had taken it all. I know you told me to leave, she started, her voice softer than usual. But I can't just walk away from this. I can't leave things like this, Damien. Please, can we just talk? I turned slowly to face her. She looked like she hadn't slept. Her eyes were red, her makeup smeared from crying. But none of it mattered. None of it was enough to fix what she had done. What do you want to say, Amara? I asked, my voice quiet but firm. What's left to say? You told me everything I needed to hear. You made your choice. I didn't want this, she said, stepping further into the room. I didn't want any of this to happen. I know I messed up, and I don't expect you to forgive me. But I need you to understand, I was feeling something. Empty. I thought I could fill that void, but I see now that I only made everything worse. Her words, though heartfelt, only felt like a reminder of the hurt. She didn't understand. She couldn't. She hadn't been in my shoes, hadn't lived through the betrayal. She hadn't felt the world shift beneath her feet in an instant, with nothing left to hold on to. Amara, stop, I said, cutting her off. I get it. I know exactly what you're trying to say, but it doesn't change anything. You made your choice, and now we have to live with the consequences. Her face crumpled in pain, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. But then I remembered everything. The lies, the secrets, the betrayal, and I couldn't feel sorry anymore. You're right, she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes again. I messed up. I'll never forgive myself for what I did. But please, please, let me make it right. I can't walk away from this, Damien. I can't just pretend like nothing happened. I shook my head slowly. There's nothing to fix, I said, my voice breaking despite myself. You can't undo what you've done, and I can't pretend that I don't know what I know now. I can't unsee what I saw. The silence stretched out between us, heavy and suffocating. I wanted to say more. I wanted to tell her everything that had been building up inside me, all the rage and pain that had been eating me alive. But I couldn't. I couldn't speak those words out loud. I didn't have it in me. For a long time, we just stood there, both of us trapped in the silence of what was once a life we had built together. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew this much. I couldn't go back. I couldn't go back to who I was before all of this. Finally, Amara spoke again, her voice barely a whisper. I love you, Damien. And I'm so sorry. Those words, I love you, felt empty now. She had said them so many times, but they no longer meant what they used to. They had become just another part of the lie, another part of the mask she had been wearing. I don't know if I can love you again, I said quietly, the weight of the truth hitting me like a tidal wave. I don't know if I can ever trust you again. I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to admit that everything between us had been broken beyond repair. But I had to, because deep down, I knew it was the truth. We couldn't go back to what we were. What we had was gone. She didn't answer. She just stood there, her face crumpling with the pain of what she had done. I wanted to comfort her, to tell her everything would be okay, but I couldn't. I couldn't even comfort myself. Amara stood there for a while, her tears falling silently, but eventually, she turned and walked out of the room. I didn't stop her. I didn't chase her. I let her go, because I knew there was nothing left for either of us. What we had was gone. And in that moment, I realized something that I hadn't let myself fully understand until now. Sometimes, the hardest part isn't finding the truth. It's facing it. It's accepting that things can never be the same again. The days that followed were a blur of emotion, confusion, and regret. I couldn't seem to pull myself out of the spiral that Amara had thrown me into. The world outside continued its usual rhythm. People going to work, families walking down the street, the hustle of daily life. But it felt like everything had stopped for me. I was living in a parallel universe, where nothing made sense anymore, and I didn't know how to get back to the world I once knew. The apartment felt like a hollow shell, the silence between us hanging thick in the air. Amara was gone, but it didn't feel like she had left me. No, it felt like I was the one who had walked away from everything I had ever believed in. The idea of love, of trust, of loyalty, everything had been stripped away. All that remained was the painful truth. I had been living a lie. It didn't take long before I realized I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I couldn't go back to work and smile at my colleagues, pretending like nothing had happened. I couldn't look my friends in the eye without wondering who had been lying to me, who had been keeping secrets. The paranoia crept in. What if everyone knew? What if they had all seen it, the cracks in our perfect image, and they had just waited for me to figure it out? I spent hours sitting on the couch, staring at the wall, trying to figure out where it all went wrong. How had we ended up here? Or had I failed her, failed us? Was it just me? Had I been so blind that I didn't see the warning signs, the late nights, the distance between us? Or was it something deeper, something I couldn't have prevented? She had called it loneliness, but was that really it? Or was there something more to it? Everywhere I looked, I saw reminders of her. Her scent still lingered in the apartment. Her favorite books were still on the shelf, the ones we had read together late into the night, laughing, talking about our future. The photographs on the walls, our wedding day, our vacations, our memories, felt like cruel jokes now. How could it have all been real if it was nothing but a facade? I knew I couldn't keep living like this. I needed answers, I needed closure. But at the same time, I was terrified of what the answers might be. Because somewhere deep down, I knew that the truth wasn't finished. I knew that I hadn't uncovered everything. And that realization was like a splinter in my mind, something I couldn't get rid of. It was late one night when the text came. "Can we talk?" It was from Amara. My heart stopped for a second, a mix of dread and curiosity washing over me. I hadn't heard from her since she left. After I told her to leave, I hadn't expected her to reach out. But there it was, a simple message that felt like an invitation to dive even deeper into the hell I had already been living in. I stared at the screen for what felt like an eternity, my thumb hovering over the keyboard, unsure of what to say. The anger that had burned through me in those first few days was gone now, replaced by something far colder, detachment. It was as though the fire that had once been inside me had burned itself out, leaving behind only a frozen shell. But even in that coldness, there was a curiosity, a need to know what more she had to say. What could she possibly tell me that would make any difference now? Finally, I typed back, "What do you want to say?" The response came almost immediately. "I don't want to leave things like this. I need to explain. Please, just let me explain." I didn't want to. I didn't want to hear her voice again, to face her, to listen to her tell me more of her excuses. But a part of me still wanted to hear it. Maybe it was because I was still hoping, somewhere in the back of my mind, that there was a way to fix this. Maybe I was just too weak to let go. "Fine," I typed. "We'll talk." I didn't know what I was expecting when I saw her standing outside my door an hour later. Part of me had imagined a confrontation, anger, accusations, a final shattering of everything we had. But she wasn't angry. She wasn't defensive. She looked broken. Amara was standing there, her hair disheveled, her eyes puffy from crying. She looked smaller than I remembered, like she had been carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders, and now it was too much. She wasn't the confident, vibrant woman I had once known. She was a shadow of that person, lost and vulnerable, and in that moment, I almost didn't recognize her. "Damien," she whispered, as though she was afraid of speaking too loud. "I'm so sorry. I know I've hurt you. I can't change what I've done, but I need you to understand. I was lost. I was so lost, and I didn't know how to find my way back." I stood there in the doorway, unsure of what to do with the emotions that had started to rise up again. Part of me wanted to slam the door in her face and walk away. I wanted to tell her that nothing she said could ever fix what she had done. But another part of me, the part that still loved her, the part that still missed the woman I had married, wanted to hear her out. I stepped aside, letting her in. She walked past me quietly, her movements slow, almost hesitant, as though she was afraid of setting something off. She sat down on the couch, her hands resting in her lap, her head down. "I never wanted this to happen," she began again, her voice low, almost too soft to hear. "I never wanted to hurt you, Damien. But I felt like I was suffocating. I didn't know how to talk to you anymore. And when Max came into my life, I don't know. It wasn't like it was with you. It wasn't love, but it was something I thought I needed. I made a mistake. A huge mistake. And now I have to live with that." I watched her as she spoke, the way she trembled, the way her hands shook. There was sincerity in her voice, but that didn't change the fact that she had crossed a line I could never uncross. "I don't know what you want me to say," I said, my voice raw. "I don't know if there's anything you can say that would make it better. I just need you to know I'm sorry," she said, her voice cracking. "I can't fix it, but I can't leave things like this, either. Please, Damien. Please. I need to make it right." Her words echoed in my mind, but they didn't feel real anymore. She had already made her choice. And now it was my turn. "I don't know if you can ever make it right," I said, my voice firm now, my anger simmering beneath the surface. "But you don't get to choose how this ends, Amara. You don't get to decide what happens next. I do." The silence that followed her words seemed to stretch on forever. We sat there, just the two of us, in a space that used to feel so comfortable. The apartment, which once held so many memories of us together, now felt cold and alien. Everything I had thought was real had been shattered in an instant, and now we were left to pick up the pieces. But how do you pick up something when you're not sure it can ever be whole again? Amara's eyes searched mine, her gaze pleading for something, anything, that might offer hope, but I couldn't find it in me to give her that. I couldn't pretend anymore. I couldn't look at her and pretend like things could ever go back to what they were. The person I thought I knew, the person I had spent years building a life with, had betrayed me in a way that left me gasping for air. "I don't know if I can do this, Amara," I said quietly, my voice low and broken. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you for what you've done." She flinched at the words, but I couldn't stop them from coming out. I needed to say it, to finally let the truth hang in the air between us. I needed her to know that the damage was done, that no matter how much she apologized, it wouldn't fix the hole that had been left in my heart. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I just need you to know that I'm sorry, that I regret everything. I never wanted to hurt you, Damien. I never wanted to be this person." I could see the tears in her eyes, but they didn't reach me the way they used to. They felt like an act, a performance she was putting on to convince herself that she still mattered to me. I wanted to feel something for her. I wanted to feel the warmth that used to radiate from her, the connection we had shared. But I couldn't. I couldn't get past the betrayal. I couldn't get past the fact that she had been with someone else, someone who had taken a piece of her that I would never get back. For the first time since she walked into this room, I let myself really look at her, and what I saw was a stranger. This wasn't the woman I had loved. This was someone else, someone who had chosen to walk away from everything we had built, someone who had made a decision that would haunt me forever. "I don't know if I can go on living like this," I said, my voice cracking under the weight of everything I was feeling. "I don't know if I can look at you and not see him. I don't know if I can ever trust you again." She shook her head, as though she was trying to deny the truth of my words. "Please don't say that," she begged. "Please don't say that you can't trust me. I've made a mistake. A terrible mistake, and I'm paying for it now. But I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make it right. I'm begging you, Damien. Don't give up on us." Her desperation hung in the air like a heavy fog, and for a moment, I almost let myself believe that there was a chance for us, that maybe we could work through this. But the truth, the ugly truth, kept resurfacing. She had betrayed me. She had chosen him. I looked away, not trusting myself to speak. I was torn. Part of me still wanted to believe that we could fix this, that love could somehow erase the pain, that we could rebuild something from the wreckage. But another part of me, the part that had been awake through all those sleepless nights, the part that had felt the sting of her lies, knew that there was no going back. "I don't think I can do this, Amara," I repeated, this time with more certainty. "I can't keep living in a shadow of what we were. I don't know who you are anymore." Her face crumpled at my words, and for a moment, I saw the woman I had once loved, the one who had made me laugh, the one who had stood by my side through everything. But that woman was gone. In her place was someone who had shattered my trust, someone who had lied to me for months, someone who had been living a double life. "I'm sorry," she whispered again, her voice breaking. "I know I've ruined everything, and I don't know how to fix it. But I love you, Damien. I've always loved you, and I'll do whatever it takes to make this right." But I wasn't sure it could be made right. I wasn't sure that anything she said could fix what was broken. The trust had been destroyed. The love we shared had been tainted by the truth. And now, I was left standing in the ruins of everything I had thought was real. I stood up slowly, my mind racing, my heart aching. The decision weighed heavily on me, and I didn't know if I was ready to make it, but I knew one thing. I couldn't keep pretending. I couldn't keep living this lie. "Amara," I said, my voice steady now, though it felt like every word was being dragged from my chest. "I think it's time we go our separate ways." Her eyes widened, and I saw the panic flash across her face. She opened her mouth to say something, but I held up my hand, stopping her. "No," I said, my voice firm. "I can't keep living in this limbo. I can't keep pretending that everything's okay when it's not. We need space. We need time apart." The silence that followed was deafening. Her face twisted in a mixture of pain and disbelief, but I couldn't take it back. I couldn't take back the decision I had made. It was the hardest thing I had ever done, but it was the only choice left. "I'm sorry," I said again, but this time it wasn't for her. It was for me. Because I had to say goodbye to the person I had once been, to the person who had believed in love, in trust, in the promise of forever. I turned and walked out of the room, leaving her there, still standing, still waiting for a miracle that I knew wasn't coming. And as I walked through the hallway and out the door, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. But I also felt something else. Something I hadn't felt in a long time. I felt free. It's been a few months since that day. Since I made the hardest decision of my life, to walk away. I still remember the weight of it, the finality of it all. Saying goodbye to someone you thought you would grow old with isn't something you just move on from. It's something you carry with you. But time has a strange way of healing, of making things clearer, even when you're sure you'll never be the same again. After Amara left, I was lost. For the first few weeks, I didn't know who I was anymore. I didn't know what I was supposed to do with the space she left behind. The apartment felt too quiet, too empty. There were days when I thought I would suffocate in my own sadness. But as the weeks passed, the heaviness slowly began to lift. I began to breathe again. I started to remember who I was before I ever met her. I remembered the parts of myself that had been buried under the weight of the relationship, the parts one had forgotten existed. I started writing again, something I hadn't done in years. I poured my feelings into journals, onto blank pages, letting the words flow freely, without worrying about how they sounded. I took long walks, just to clear my head, to reconnect with the world around me. And slowly, piece by piece, I began to rebuild my life. One afternoon, a few months after Amara left, I met someone. Her name is Mia. She's funny, kind, and full of life. When we first talked, it was just a casual conversation. She was a stranger at a coffee shop, and we struck up a random conversation about a book we were both reading. But over time, we started meeting more often. We laughed. We shared stories. She didn't try to fix me. She didn't offer advice. She just listened. It wasn't love at first sight, but it was something I hadn't felt in a long time, connection. Mia had her own stories, her own scars, and we found comfort in each other's company. She didn't judge me for my past. She didn't expect me to be someone I wasn't. And over time, I realized I didn't need to rush anything. I didn't need to force myself into another relationship just to fill the void. With Mia, things were slow. They were real. And that's what made it feel so right. Eventually, I began to trust again, not just her, but myself. I began to believe in my ability to heal, to move forward. I realized that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean erasing the pain. But it does mean freeing yourself from it, letting go of the weight of the past so you can live for the future. Mia and I don't have everything figured out. We still have our own challenges to face, our own obstacles. But we're building something new together, something that's grounded in honesty, in respect, and in the quiet understanding that we're both on a journey of healing. And for the first time in a long time, I'm excited about the future. Amara was a chapter in my life, a painful chapter, but one that taught me more than I could have ever expected. I learned about my own strength, about the depth of my capacity for growth. I learned that sometimes things have to fall apart so that something better can take shape. I've come to realize that life isn't about the mistakes we make. It's not about the betrayals or the heartbreaks. It's about how we rise after them. It's about how we rebuild, how we choose to move forward. And with every step I take, I know I'm not alone. I know I've got myself, and I've got people who care, who want the best for me. So here I am, the man who once thought his life was over, the man who thought he couldn't go on after the heartbreak. I've learned that life is full of surprises, and sometimes, the most unexpected endings are the ones that lead to new beginnings. And for the first time in a long time, I'm ready for whatever comes next.